Hey, it's ARTFX, and this is a new bass design video where I'm gonna be showing you how I made this Neuro bass using just native Ableton Live instruments and effects. So, it's, by the way, really hot today. It's about, I think, 30 degrees outside, so I guess it's about 40 plus inside the studio right now. Yeah, it's definitely hot. I'm sweating like hell out here, but, nonetheless, I'm gonna be showing you how I made this bass. Let's get to it. It's made out of 2 layers, and I'm just using Operator. Now, I haven't used any third-party effects, it's just Operator and some Ableton Live native devices. So, I'm gonna be showing you how I made this. So, with everything turned off, this is what this operator would sound like. It's just this particular shape, this particular waveform that I've drawn, just randomly. I haven't really paid too much attention to it, but that is gonna sound like this. Now that's really low in volume, I'm not sure if you can hear that well, but into that I'm feeding operator B. Operator B is actually set to a chorus value of 2 instead of 1, so that's an octave higher. And what this is gonna do is it's going to add some more movement to the first operator. So I'm automating the level, and that's actually this bottom automation lane. So I'm just automating that level on each single note. So that will give us this. So that's already different from what we had. Now, if we look at the routing tab, you can see I'm using the third routing option. So what that routing mode means is that we have operator A, and the frequency of that operator is being controlled by operator B. Then again, the frequency of operator B is controlled by operator C. And normally with the default routing option, the last operator, operator D, would then again be controlling the frequency of operator C. But in this particular routing setting, we now have sort of like a parallel chain where operator D is again also controlling the frequency of operator A. So operator A's frequency is actually being controlled by 2 operators. And that's gonna give us, well, a completely different sound. Operator D, however, is also set to quite an interesting setting. The chorus value is up to 10, so that's really high up. And I think they're both triangle waves. Yeah, so both C and D are triangle. And I'm automating the level of operator D. So that's this up, this last one, or this one. And that's actually gonna give us that characteristic Neuro funk kind of sound, where you have this higher pitched kind of, higher harmonics kind of sound. Just listen. Right? So especially that one. That's really that Neuro funk kind of sound, right? So that's actually just that higher pitched kind of thing. Now, I've also brought the fine tune up to 15, which is just gonna add a little bit of stereo width, but only during the parts where we actually have that 4th operator coming up. So only during these first notes. You can see during these notes I'm not automating that upwards, so see, so those actually just sound like the normal 3 oscillator setup. If I would choose the first setting, it's gonna sound different. You hear? We're not gonna get that same kind of sound. So just by changing up that kind of thing, it's gonna sound like that. We might as well just check out other routing options. Just to see what's going on with them, but I like the third one a lot. That is then running into a filter, which is a high pass, and on this high pass I'm actually automating the frequency. So during those first notes I'm automating the frequency upwards, And what I'm doing here is I have the filter drive turned on, so I've set this to OSR. That's going to enable this filter drive to just give it a little bit of saturation. And I've also turned on the wave shaper, which is set to the hard mode, and that's actually where a lot of the distortion in the sound is coming from. So without that hard mode, if I just turn this shaper off, that's what we're going to get. And with the hard shaper turned on, we're just gonna get a whole bunch more distortion, which is what I want. Then again, I've also added a pitch envelope, and what this is gonna do is right at the start of each single note, when I trigger one of these notes, we're actually getting some pitch movement going on each single note. So what it is doing is, if you look at this, I've brought this down to minus 100%. So what is happening is right at the start of each single note, the pitch is actually starting an octave below what it should be, and then it's just really quickly bending up in pitch to the correct pitch, which is actually an octave higher. So you kind of like get this movement at the start of each sound, at the start of each note, and it's not too audible, it's quite subtle, but it does change the sound quite a bit. So this without, and this with. Especially on this second one, you can hear it. This without, and this with. So you just get that kind of like upward sucking kind of sound. I'm not really too sure how to describe it, but I like it. Spread is brought up just ever so slightly to give it a bit more stereo width. Then I'm running that into a frequency splitting rack, which is just using the multiband dynamics to split this up into two bands. It's a sub band and a mid band. So sub and mid. And then on the mid band, I'm just adding a bunch of effects. So we have a chorus. Chorus is set to quite a high setting on the high pass, so it's just adding some width on the higher frequencies. And I brought the dry wet down quite a lot, and I'm automating that dry wet as well, so it just adds a little bit more variation throughout the sound. Then I have two notch filters, and they're both being controlled by LFOs, but the LFO speeds are slightly different. So the first one is being controlled by a rate of 1 bar, and the second one is being controlled by a rate of half a bar. So they're both moving with that LFO. They're both being moved, but in different speeds. So you're gonna get a variation across each single note in this sound. Every note that you're gonna play is not gonna sound the same because of those two filters moving at different speeds. But however, they are synced to the actual BPM of the project. So they are kind of like moving in different speeds, but they're still gonna be in sync with the whole tempo of the project, which is kind of like what you want when you're doing these kind of sounds. The first one is a 24 dB per octave filter shape, and the second one is a 12 dB per octave shape. So they're kind of like taking out a bunch of frequencies, and it's really adding that Neuro kind of sound. So this is without, and this is with. So it's really gonna make the sound a bit more hollow, which is kind of like what you hear a lot in Neurofunk. Then we have an amp, which is just gonna add a whole bunch more high frequencies to this. Just gonna distort it a bunch more as well. And now you can actually hear the reverb. So the reverb is on a return track, and I've turned on the low cut and high cut and just changed this graph so that there's no low frequencies in the reverb. And I'm sending both of these tracks into the reverb, as you can see right here. That's just gonna add a bit more reverb to the sound, which will, well, definitely be something that you want to do on Neuro basis. Then I have a auto filter, which is being controlled by an automation lane, and it's also being controlled by an LFO. So that's again going to take out a lot of those high frequencies, but it's going to add a bunch more movement to the sound. So that's gonna sound like that. And during this one, I've actually automated the rate to be half a bar, whereas the normal rate of these hits is 1 beat. So that's just changing it up a little bit, especially on that last phrase. Let me undo that. So we are losing a lot of high frequencies though, right? So I decided to add another amp with the mix brought down quite a bit, but that's gonna bring up those high frequencies again. And then I added an EQ8, which is just bringing down the low mids ever so slightly and really cranking up the high frequencies, so that's gonna add even more high frequencies to it. Really like the sound of that. And damn, I'm really sweating. It's definitely fucking hot outside here. I think it's about 30 degrees outside, so it's probably about 40 inside. I'm not really that sure, but it feels like a rainforest, I guess. That's it for the entire first layer. Then we have the second layer, which is much more simple. Let's just get to it. It's really simple. It's just 2 operators. The first one is a square wave. Just doing that. And the whole movement in the sound is coming from that second operator. This one is again just a shape that I've drawn randomly. Whatever, just do something until it sounds good. And I'm feeding that into the main operator, into that square wave, with just a little bit. It's minus 23 dB. And I brought the coarse value up 1 octave, so that's set to 2 instead of 1. And then we have the fine tune, which is set to 42. So it's actually slightly out of tune. But because it's controlling the frequency of the first operator, which is not out of tune, we're gonna get some movement. And that will give it that characteristic movement that you hear in neurofunk a lot. So this without, and this with. That's awesome. And I've done that throughout the entire patch, but I've automated the fine tune, which is actually controlling the rate, the speed of that movement. So you can hear if I just play these 2 after each other, the first one has no movement, but the second one has some movement in terms of the fine tune. So the speed of that movement will change ever so slightly. You can hear, right? It's going up, it's speeding up a little bit and then going back down. I'm doing the same here, where it's actually, well, a slightly slower modulation on a slightly higher note. So that's kind of like some variation that I've added. And then on the last part, I'm really automating that speed a lot. And this one's actually where it starts to resonate, I guess, because the speed of the fine tune is set so high. I mean, if I bring that down, oh, I guess that sounds cool as well. Oh, that's nice. So let's just keep that. Then on this one, I think I haven't really done too much other than this. I've just added a filter, which is a notch filter, and I'm automating that frequency. So that's just going to give us, well, really that characteristic morphing kind of neuro sound. So without the auto filter, we had this with that's really gonna make it sound much more interesting. Then on the group, I have, well, quite some heavy compression, but just evening out all the levels of this bass line. So without, kind of sounds like that, and with it, it just really brings that whole thing upwards. It just brings the level up, and I think that sounds quite good. So I've layered that with just 1 drum loop, which is coming from a sample pack, nothing too crazy. Just that. And that together with the bass line ends up sounding like this. So there you have it. Now, if you like this video, please subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with all my bass design videos and my sound design videos as well. It will mean a lot to me if you help me to sustain this channel. If you want to help me, I mean, I'm getting a lot of emails of guys or comments on videos or messages on Facebook of people asking me how they can help me support this channel because they love what I do. Well, actually, you can do that. I have a website which is www.artfx-studios.com, and on that website I have a web shop with sample packs and preset packs that I designed myself and that I, well, put up there for you guys to use in your tracks. See it like this. I get all these emails of people saying like, if I could support you, I would do that, or is there a way I can support you? Well, in this way you will both support me and support this channel, but you will also get something back for it. Now, see it like this. I mean, I've got bills to pay, right? So, to pay those bills, I gotta make some money. And the thing is, the more time I'm spending making money, the less time I have working on music. So, if I can make money with music, that would make sense, right? That will give me a lot more time to work on music. So if you want some samples and if you want some presets, go to my website right now, which is www.artfx-studios.com. The link will be in the description, and on that website, in the web store, you can actually fill in the code 40k special during the checkout to get a 40% discount on all your purchases. Now, I'm doing that because I've reached 40,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel, which is pretty damn awesome, and that's why I'm giving away this discount. So that's it for this video. If you want to see more of these videos, subscribe to this channel, and I hope to see you back soon. Peace.